You want keys to the game? Attack that NC State secondary, please.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the number one sports podcast network. We have the everydayers to thank. On this loaded episode, we're going to bring in our special guest in just a second. People are always asking, we have fun going through these. You know, for Miami's slim playoff chances and even slim, very slim ACC championship game chances, we'll tell you who to root against this weekend, in addition to rooting for Miami to win. And on keys to the game, I mentioned yesterday how poor NC State defensively has been on third down this year. They are 121st in the country in opponent third down percentage. Miami's been pretty good offensively on third down, but not last week. They were 3 for 9 last week against Syracuse, so you hope NC State is the slump buster. But another one to keep in mind is we bring in the postcast king, our guy Gries. Jim, Miami needs to hopefully be able to attack the NC State secondary. I had a conversation with Grayson Boone and Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. We had our crossover episode. They reminded me NC State secondary has really struggled. They're always like 7-8 yards off their guy in coverage. And I looked up the numbers, Gries. NC State this season, 133rd in the country against the pass out of 134 teams. If Carson Beck, CJ Daniels, Malachi Toney, Keelan Marion and company can't get going this week, I don't know if they ever will again.
Yeah, the offense has been tough. The defense hasn't allowed more than 28 points in a game this year, Alex. And when I look at, you talk about, which teams we want to lose, that's something that still induces the vomit to come up into the back of my throat and into my mouth when the University of Miami Hurricanes have to hope somebody loses. I don't even know how to respond to that. I know and everybody says I'm living in the past. Gries, you still think it's 2001 or the early 90s, late 80s, and maybe I do, but at the same time, with the talent this team has, which is clearly top 3 to 5 in the country, the 2-7 record in November doesn't fly anymore. Hoping other teams lose doesn't fly anymore. It's time to win out. It's time, and I don't think this team right now, I'm not all that confident this team is going to win out. That Pittsburgh game is looming. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is I don't know that I want the Miami Hurricanes to make the ACC championship because I think we have a better chance of making the playoff without it.
Yes. Well, and you know what? You're probably right about that. And by the way, so this is respect to Cane Sport because they came up with a better explanation than AI did for me on how Miami gets to the ACC championship game. It's almost impossible, Gries, but let me lay out the scenario for you.
Okay.
For Miami to get to the ACC championship game, they have to win out, of course. They would also need either Boston College or Pittsburgh to beat Georgia Tech. They would also need Clemson to beat Louisville. That's tonight. They would need Louisville to beat SMU the following week. So Louisville has to lose tonight, or they have to lose tonight and win next week, because that would put you in a 4 or 5-way tie at 6-2. Then Miami's head-to-head loss to the Mustangs wouldn't be a killer in that scenario. Miami would get the second spot in the title game behind Duke because of conference opponent win percentage. So just to throw that out there, that's very complicated because I'm with you. Getting to the CFP may be easier if you don't get to the ACC championship game.
Yeah, and then the ACC set up to have 2 teams in there, and that's not bad. But I know I'm the old head here. I think we should have stayed an independent like Notre Dame did in football. Miami's the most watched team in the country, not Notre Dame. I think I saw it posted somewhere this week that Miami, by a large margin, is the most watched team in the country this season. And so that's an interesting thing as well. But when you're talking about a conference that we've never won, a championship game that we don't play in, and an NC State team that beat us 20-6 2 years ago, I don't think you can take anything for granted with a 2-7 November record under Mario Cristobal, an offense that couldn't run the ball until Pringle came into the game, and you don't know if Syracuse just wore out or if, and if the interesting thing that I heard in that game, besides Mario and starting to fight with the other coach, I thought that was great. By the way, I'm not ripping Mario.
I thought that was
for that.
Fantastic. And
I think it's great.
I get
show the
we
fire.
We get a lot of hate comments for Fran Brown. I find Fran to be entertaining.
I like Fran Brown. Like
he's
what he said
foil.
to Michael Irvin. Yeah, I like him. But I like what he said because he said that we thought we had Miami almost on the ropes, and then Miami scored a couple of quick. So I like the way that our team responded last week, although Syracuse is about as weak can get. And NC State's pass defense, you talk about that. Look, the late touchdown notwithstanding, we were just happy to get a win with everything that's been going on lately and the November record. But Alex, this offense at some point, I mean, it's late in the season. Beck had the big drive against Notre Dame. He had the big game against Florida State. And you start thinking like this offense is cruising. But one step forward, two steps back, two steps forward, one step back. You have the big plays, then you give up the ball. You have, so the way the offense put it together in the second half last week, the way they put it together in the second half against Stanford, albeit against terrible teams and awful defenses, that's what you want to see. But what I want to see is the team that took the field against USF and the offense that won the game against Notre Dame. But there have just been so many prolonged periods this season where the offense just goes 3 and out, turns the ball over, 3 and out. And I think part of it is we got spoiled by having Cam Ward, and we had to outscore everybody last year with the defense being what it was. Well, now that we have this defense, and Dawson says I call the game a little bit differently because we don't have to score as many points anymore. Why? I'll tell you why. Because he's limited at the quarterback position. And we didn't think so early in the year, but we know so now, right? We've been limited at the quarterback position. We've had some injuries, Fletcher, Daniels. So there are a lot of factors in that. The offensive line hasn't taken over the way we thought it would against the run, but they've been better against the pass rush lately. So the other part of it that I want to throw out there is Louisville is a pretty good football team if you haven't been paying attention, and SMU is too. Yeah. But the Miami Hurricanes should have won both those games without a doubt.
100%.
Here you are having to win out. Game. Especially the SMU game. Had it won, gave it away. But that path to the CFP is what I'm looking at, because I don't care about the ACC championship game. I don't care about the ACC. I never have and I never will. Maybe in basketball I do, but in football, I really don't care about the ACC championship. I don't care about it's just a moneymaker. I'd rather make the playoff without playing in the conference championship, not risk getting anybody hurt, not risk another loss, just win out the rest of the way and let that Notre Dame win keep barking loudly for us, because there's a lot of people talking about that win right now with that whole us versus them mindset of Notre Dame or Miami getting in, and then they both get in, right? So that's the biggest win, and that's the only win that's our saving grace right now as I look at it. And so I just want to make the CFP and see if we can make a run in there, because if we make the CFP, I would consider that to be a successful season. I really would. 1,000%. A nice step forward, right? Wouldn't you? A nice step forward to make. As much as I've ripped Mario, and he definitely deserves it, and as much as I've ripped Dawson, and he definitely deserves it, because you can't have a top 3 team talent-wise and barely be in the top 15. But a step up into the playoff this year would be a success to me, and I'd be happy with that.
I mean, that's a clear incremental improvement from last year. Like last year, you won 10 games for the first time in 7 years, but you didn't make playoff, right? This year, if you can win 10 games again, which they haven't done in back-to-back seasons since 02-03. So you win 10 games again and you get into the playoff, hopefully, then that is an incremental step forward from last year. So I'm with you on that. I want to talk about the injury report when we come back and a few more keys, because one that had been rumored and one that had been feared was confirmed on the injury report on Thursday night. Miami is going to be without one of their top 3 defensive players this weekend. You want to keep it locked right here. We got the Postcast King with us. Gries, by the way, as you know, is going to be on Locked On audio and video channel right after the NC State game tomorrow. Well, let's talk injuries, talk keys when we come back right here on Locked On Canes. Folks, the weekend is almost here, and it's time to check back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving you more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Miami, somebody being on a streak, Malachi Toney keeps delivering in a big way. He's throwing touchdown passes. He's rushing for touchdowns, catching touchdowns this year. Had a touchdown pass to Carson Beck last season. When the pressure is on, Malachi Toney has consistently delivered on offense for the Canes. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, you know that performance wasn't a fluke. Malachi Toney in his true freshman season is on a streak. And just like Toney delivers for the Canes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period runs through November 18th. We're also proudly brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when you first $5 bet when that wins, I should say. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. Alex Donno alongside our man Gries, who hosts the podcast. He'll be on right after the NC State game. All right, so Gries, the rumors have been going around this week about injuries for Miami. Man, and this timing, it's terrible because Keonte Scott had just become a Thorpe Award semifinalist. He's having a tremendous year at nickel for Miami. And he also, just this past weekend, moved into the top-graded cornerback spot on PFF, and Keonte Scott has suffered an injury. He's going to be out. I'm not sure about the long term. There's a lot of speculation about that, but a lower body injury. Keonte Scott will not play this week. So that is, I believe we could see a number of different players in the nickel spot, including Marty Brown, Jadis Richard, who just came off a knee injury and played well in the second half last week. Bryce Fitzgerald, I think, could see time there. So, Gries, we got to have that next man up mentality because, again, like outside of, the stats and the pressures that Bain and Mesidor have put up on the defensive line, Keonte Scott, at worst, has been the third best defensive player, if not maybe the best defensive player this year for Miami, and we're not going to have him on Saturday.
Yeah, that's a big loss, right? And next man up. I mean, it's a deep team. It's a talented team. Next man up. And, CJ Bailey and company, they can put up a lot of points for NC State. Another South Florida kid, right? Coming home. And then, of course, we have to go on the road for the last 2 weeks. So you never know how that's going to go. This is a must-win big game with Miami having gotten a lot of help last week, Alex. We got a lot of help, not only in the ACC, but in the top 15 as well, to move up. And look at that list. Fletcher still out. And we have not been able to replace him, although Marty Brown's been okay. And I like what I saw last week from Pringle. Everybody likes what they saw from Pringle.
That's my guy, Gerard Pringle. And you know what's funny?
You've been talking about him for a long time. You've been on him for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, Pringle has not had a first-half carry yet this season. I think this is the week where he's going to get a carry or two in the first half. And I think he got 7 carries last week. I'd like to see Pringle get 10-plus carries this week, Gries. And it's not to say, obviously, Marty Brown is your battering ram. And Jordan Lyle, he just hasn't had the same explosion he had last year. I hope he can find it. But I want to see Pringle get more work than he got last week.
Yeah, and I want to see the whole receiving core be healthy. I know C.J. Daniels is coming back, but then I see Tony Johnson, who had a big game a couple of weeks ago. And, Marion's been stepping up. I just want to see Beck have a full complement of receivers and the backfield completely healthy. And, I don't know if you have any word on Fletch right now. It's just injuries are a part of the game. We know this. They've always been a part of the game. And one of the big reasons why the Miami Hurricanes were always so dominant when we were dominant is because we were loaded. And not just the 0-1 team that had 2-3 guys deep with NFL stars in the making at some positions, many positions. That was an embarrassment of riches in the Butch Davis, Pete Garcia era. But and they left Coker with the keys to the Ferrari. But when you had Ed Reed and Sean Taylor and Shockey and Winslow and all those guys, the three-headed monster of McGahee and Portis and all those guys at tailback and Najee Davenport and all those guys on the same team, Frank Gore, they were all on the same team. So I mean, that's rare and tough to come across. But when you think about the level of talent coming out of South Florida, and even nationally, the guys that we've been getting, you can't keep everybody home. Everybody's like, oh, why didn't we keep C.J. Bailey? Why didn't we keep Mendoza? You can't keep everybody home, right? And now we're talking about maybe him coming here next year, right, and coming back home. So you never know, because just because you let a guy go and get out of South Florida, out of high school, we've learned with Ward and with Beck, with mixed results, right? They can end up at a place like Miami, and no one ever thought a guy like Beck would end up here. And it's almost been, I don't want to say even almost, it's been a major disappointment with Carson Beck in my mind. I think it's been a colossal failure bringing him in. And I did not see that coming. I thought he was good. I mean, it'd be hard to say he's going to have a Cam Ward year, but part of that has been the injuries. And I think, Alex, that Miami's going to have to score a bunch of points to win this game, because with two of the top three corners out on our defense, even though you have Bain and Mesidor off the corners and Lightfoot's emerging and some really good things have been happening with the defense, Miami hasn't really shown that it can shut down a high-level offense this year completely. So I think that NC State can be that offense in spurts. They're streaky, and I think that they can put up a lot of points. So I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park for Miami. I think the Canes are going to have to score some points. I think Beck's going to have to make some plays in this game. I think he will, but I don't think this is it by any means a gimme.
Well, this is going to be a big test for Miami's defense, because you talk about NC State's offense. They put up all those points against Georgia Tech, and that was without their top running back, Hollywood Smothers. Guess what? He's back this week.
He's back this week.
Without their top tight end, Justin Jolie. Guess what? He's back this week as well. So Miami's defense is going to be tested. To me, the big key, and the NC State guys said this to me, like, for as good of a year as C.J. Bailey is having, and I don't think it would surprise anyone if he shows up and just plays lights out tomorrow, because that's just what happens when the South Florida kids come home. That wouldn't surprise anybody.
Second best QB we faced this year, right? Wouldn't you say?
He might be, honestly.
Besides Notre Dame, besides Carr? Yeah.
And that was Carr in his first game too. So this is So you might be right about that. But the one thing that keeps me hopeful, and I'm sure, believe me, for the past 2 weeks, his coaches have tried to coach this out of him, because the key to finding success against Miami is quick release to try to beat the pass rush, right? That's something C.J. Bailey has not done well. So unless they've been able to really coach that out of him, he holds the football for too long. And this is the last defense that you want to do that against, right? So we saw like Miller Moss, Louisville, who had a ton of success against Miami because he was getting rid of the ball in under 2.5 seconds every play. That's not something C.J. Bailey has done effectively. He's held on to the football for too long. So I'm anxious to see if NC State has been able to coach that out of him. I think that's going to be a huge key to victory potentially for NC State. Let me run through the end of my keys here, Gries, and you tell me if you want to add anything to this. I mentioned attack NC State's secondary, 133rd against the pass. Miami needs to take advantage. We talk about the inconsistencies of the offense. It's very clear to me you have to hit an explosive play early, because our offense does not loosen up until they've hit an explosive play. So you got to get that first explosive play hopefully out of the way on your opening drive, right? The obvious one, keep your penalties and keep your turnovers down, because Gries, it's not a coincidence. In the 2 games that Miami lost this year, they averaged about 11 penalties in those 2 losses, and they lost the turnover margin in both of those games. The self-inflicted wounds. How do you lose to less talented teams? 2 of the big ways you do that. These aren't the only ways. Self-inflicted wounds.
You beat yourself, and it should be just show up, Alex. Just show up, and you beat this team. Just show up, and you beat SMU. So I'm going to give you my key, not only to this game, but to this season overall. And I could sit here like I have all year and talk about the coaching, and that's that's a low-hanging fruit right now. The head coach and the offensive coordinator is a low-hanging fruit. And so what I want to say is, Miami, you talk about beating ourselves, right? So when you have your foot on the gas and when you're smothering an opponent on defense and you're stuffing it down their throat on offense, you got to score the points to go along with it. Miami's had trouble with that this year. Slow starts, not putting points on the board in the first half when you're gaining a bunch of yardage and you're just not putting 2 and 2 together. And sometimes that's tougher to do than it seems like it is. But SMU, look, I mean, they should have had 21 more points in that game and it would have never gone anywhere near overtime. It shouldn't have been an issue. And then the other part of it, in the Louisville game, was falling behind and having to play catch up and coming back later because of the same situation. Putting drives together where you don't score, dominating the yardage, the time of possession, the first downs, and having not much of a lead, if any lead, to show for it. I think that's been a common theme with this team all year, even against Stanford and against Syracuse. They just didn't get going in the first half, right? Yeah. And that's okay against some of those teams. But if you do that this week against NC State, you might find yourself in another Louisville situation where you have no margin for error in the second half. And I think that's something they really need to avoid. So that speaks to your point. Hit a big play early, put points on the board in the first quarter. A couple touchdowns would be nice, at least 10 in the opening quarter as far as points go. And I would like to see them start to put that together offensively, because this offense has not been consistent at all, even within the same game, drive to drive, quarter to quarter. No consistency on offense. And I really want to see that come together, because I do believe the talent on this offense is much better than what we've seen.
1,000,000%. I couldn't have said it better myself. And just to add to your point, why starting fast early is always important for Miami, because this defense is best when you're playing with the lead, because that's when the pass rush can shine. That's number one. But then on the flip side this week, NC State has a really talented running game. Hollywood Smothers, very shifty, can get to the outside. And then they had the breakout game. Freshman running back Duke Scott put up 196 rushing yards against Georgia Tech, and he's a more powerful inside runner. So
that game shocked me. Yeah, I did not see that coming, Alex. I got to admit, I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah, so the point being that if you let NC State have an early lead, they can start to lean on that running game, and we don't want that to happen. We want to be, we want C.J. Bailey dropping back 40 times. It's the type of game that we want. And it's not to say he's not a good quarterback, but you want him dropping back 40 times so you can get your pass rush going is what we need. All right, so, and you said it best. You start to feel the vomit rise up a little bit when you talk about all the help that Miami needs to get into the college football playoff. But, again, Miami does have a slim chance to get in. You not only need to win out, but you need others to lose. So if I look at the top 25 games, Gries, and tell me if you disagree with any of these. So you have Clemson at Louisville tonight, Louisville number 20. I'm rooting for Clemson in this game because Louisville kind of hanging around a few spots behind Miami. You don't want to be in a situation where if both teams finish 10-2 that they elevate Louisville over Miami for the head-to-head. So I'm rooting for Clemson tonight. Clemson winning does not hurt Miami at all. I root for the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, you root for him, but I'm not holding my breath for Dabo and his team to get that job done.
You know what's crazy, though? Louisville at home, they're only favored by 1.5, which, sometimes Vegas knows things, or the sharps know things, because
$300 if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel.
That's right, with FanDuel.
Sounds good to me to lay that Louisville lumber, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but I honestly think, Alex, I don't think they'll pass us anyway. I think if Miami wins out and gets that win at Pittsburgh, a good team in the final game, I think, not worried. So I would say that I'm rooting for Clemson to win this game, but I don't think it'll kill us if they don't.
Dabo's hard to root for too, so it's like,
he is.
If they lose, I wouldn't mind. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. All right, so I'm skipping the games that don't really affect us, just so people know. But another one that obviously affects us: number 9 Notre Dame at number 22 Pitt. Now, when I hear Pitt's coach Pat Narduzzi saying, doesn't matter if we lose this game by 100 because it's a non-conference game, that doesn't really fill me with confidence in Pitt. But I will say Pitt beating Notre Dame, it's better for us because obviously, we have the head-to-head win over Notre Dame, but we have a head-to-head coming up with Pitt. And then if Notre Dame loses to Pitt, they likely fall behind Miami. And then if Miami beats Pitt at the end of the year, you're guaranteed to finish in front of Notre Dame. So I'm going to be rooting for Pitt on Saturday. Probably won't help us though if they
Yeah, and I
because I
can't
don't think we're
stand
going
their
to win.
coach for that. I'm with you on that. I saw your tweet about that, Alex, and
Yeah.
it's disgusting. You win every game. You play to win every game. You don't want to lose momentum. What the hell is that? Maybe that's why they're Pitt. But I'll be honest with you, Pitt is a tough team, and but because of your logic where they knock Notre Dame out and then we have a chance to play them head to head and beat them, then that's by that logic, I would say that you want Pitt to win this game. But I also think a Miami Notre Dame rematch in the playoffs and a chance to beat them again, that would be awesome too.
Yeah, because I'm tired of hearing from their fans that are like, well, if we played you again, we'd beat you by 40. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a hypothetical. Like, we literally beat you guys, and you're giving me the hypothetical. So give me a real game then. Let's do a few others here. Let's see. In Indiana, Miami can't pass them, so it doesn't really matter what happens between them and Wisconsin. Same thing with Texas A&M. Doesn't matter what happens against South Carolina. 24th ranked South Florida. We want USF beating Navy for strength of schedule. A Navy win doesn't help us at all. So you root for South Florida to win. This is a big one, Gries. Number 11 Oklahoma at number 4 Alabama. I've never said this before, but I'm going to say it now. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, baby.
Alabama
Just knock
win.
them out of there. Knock them out of there. But no one wants an Alabama win more than Alabama, and they're rolling right now. They might be the best team in the country at the moment. I mean, I'll never give Ohio State any of that credit to ever call them the best team ever in my entire life. So Bama seriously might be the best team in America right now. They're rolling. They really are. And I think they smoke Oklahoma. I really do. And I think that'll help us. So, every week a couple teams in front of us lose and we keep winning, we'll be in the playoff. We'll be in the playoff, but I don't want to just be in the playoff. I want to get a good seed in the playoff.
Same.
And you know what I mean? I want to get a favorable matchup. I don't want to be playing one of those teams in the top 4 or 5 in the first game. I want a game under our belt first, like it's projected right now with Texas Tech, right?
Yeah. And by the way, Texas Tech plays who do they have this weekend? UCF at home. So Texas Tech is probably going to destroy UCF's bad, but I think you root for UCF to try to hand Texas Tech their second loss. New Mexico State against 23rd ranked Tennessee. I mean, I guess you root for New Mexico State. That's not going to happen.
Right.
Let's see. Oh, here's a big one, Gries. We have to root for number 5 Georgia to beat number 10 Texas, because there's no way Miami catches Georgia. Texas should not be in the top 10 right now, but we need Georgia to beat them so they fall out of that top 10.
Yeah, the programs that get that automatic love, and people think it's still years ago when they vote for them. And, I don't think Texas is a factor. I'd love to play them in the playoff if they somehow made it, because I think we'd smoke them. But talk about overhyped with Sark and these last couple of QBs. Quinn Ewers, who plays for the Dolphins and just launched his own brand, by the way, without ever seeing the field.
He did?
Yeah, he launched his own brand of merchandise and whatever. He has his own logo. It's like, dude, just get on the field first, And then Arch Manning.
Quarterback.
So Arch, and before that, Ewers, I guess a lot of the shine is off of Sark there with the QBs in Texas, either recruiting the wrong ones or not coaching them up the way that we thought he did and used to. So I think Texas loses by double digits in this game, and I think we get the help we need from Georgia right there.
I would tend to agree. And then another big one, BYU at number 12. If TCU can beat, and that's a good game. So TCU at number 12, BYU. A TCU win would go a long way. Gries, TCU is 6-3. They're a pretty good team. BYU is 8-1. They just got their doors blown off, though, by Texas Tech. BYU's favored at home by 3.5 against TCU, but a Horned Frogs mild upset victory would really help Miami because BYU is at number 12. If BYU loses, if Oklahoma loses, if Texas loses, and Miami wins, Miami could move up 3 spots this weekend if all those things happen.
Yep, and then in the next week, even more, and the week after that, and you still got to win those games, 2 road games, Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh, right, to close it out. So when I think about those games that you mentioned, most likely would be Georgia over Texas, Alabama over Oklahoma, number 2.
Yeah.
The question, though, with BYU, right, were they really as good as we thought they were, number 1? But How do you respond to a spanking like that? How do you respond to
Yeah.
getting your doors blown off? Do you, batten down the hatches and have a great week of practice and show your pride and come out and hammer TCU? Or do you continue reeling and drop a winnable game at home and go into a free fall? I don't have an answer to that question until I see them on the field. So we don't know how they're going to respond. Obviously, we want them to go into free fall mode.
Yeah, and another team, I don't know if Utah, if did they not play this weekend? Because I know Utah is a team that's been like hanging around above us, a couple spots above us. Oh yeah, they played Baylor. Utah's favored by 9.5 on the road. Not going to happen most likely, but a Baylor victory against Utah, that would go a long way. So if they lose as well, we could move up 4 spots. I'm talking myself into being number 11 by Tuesday.
You know what I want to talk myself into, Alex, first and foremost, is just beating NC State, because I don't think that's
Amen.
a gimme with
Nope.
what's been going on with this team in the offense in particular lately. But I do want to say one thing. Thank God for Corey Heatherman and this defense this year, because last year it was the exact opposite. And you made the point a couple weeks ago, we want to see a concerted effort between offense, defense, and special teams. We haven't seen the electrifying special teams as much, and we haven't seen the offense and defense both put it together in the same year. Last year it was the offense, not the defense. This year it's been the other way around. But I do think this offense has a much better chance to turn it around than last year's defense did. And they still have 3 games to do it. So a couple of big games here heading into that Pitt game. You smoke NC State and you blow out Virginia Tech like you should. You have all the confidence in the world going into that Pitt game. You light it up in that game. I do believe that Carson Beck has it in him. I do believe this offense has it in them to turn it on. I didn't think that about the defense a year ago. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think this offense still has a shot to put it all together and get that consistency we've been waiting to see all year.
And I hadn't thought about it that way, but I think you're 1,000,000% right. I just think last year's defense, they were too lost with Lance Guidry, and they didn't have the personnel to turn it around. Where I think the offense does have the personnel, because we've seen it
without a doubt.
1 quarter, 2 quarters, some games 3 quarters, but they haven't put it together for 4 quarters. So I'm with you on that. And we'll end it on that note. Make sure you guys tune in right after the game. Probably around 7:30 p.m. Is when that game's going to finish. And Gries is going to have the postcast for you on Locked On Canes YouTube and on the audio channel. Thank you so much, Gries, and thanks so much to the Everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. And we'll talk to you next time right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, #1 sports network on any podcast platform. Your team every day.